to the Halloween special of Beams, Screams, and Dreams. I'm your host, Joshua Wiggin.
I'm Ashley Wiggin.
And tonight we're going to break format a little bit.
We have a really awesome one interview episode to bring you guys that is perfect for this evening.
Right. The interviewee is Damian Gray, host of the Paranormal News Network, and we're very excited to have him and very excited to be able to bring you guys his story. So stay tuned and we hope you enjoy. Damian, welcome to Beams, Screams, and Dreams. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great.
Doing
Having
really
a great
well.
night.
Yeah, excited to have you here.
Thanks. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure is all ours.
Yeah. So you're one of few people that when I posted on an abductee group on Facebook actually felt comfortable reaching out and wanting to share your story, which was awesome because we don't get a lot of that. So wherever you're comfortable starting, wherever the beginning is, whenever this started for you, go ahead and jump in.
I need to preface this. This whole thing happened in 1988. Up until that time, and I guess I was what 22 years old at the time that this happened. Up until that time, I never believed in UFOs. I mean, I believed in alien life. I believed in extraterrestrials. I just didn't think they had much interest in us, really. And, and that was before I really researched all of this stuff. But as I say, this happened back in 1988, but I didn't remember anything about it until 1995. And what had happened was in 1995, I was, my girlfriend and I were living together, and we had a mutual friend whose name was Clay, and he was a big believer in the whole UFO alien thing. And he brought over one night to our apartment this book, and it was a companion book to the X-Files. And he's trying to explain, that they're real. And I'm just going, yeah. And I'm thumbing through the book, and I came across this one still from a series, and I believe it was Fox Mulder, and he was pointing up to the sky, and over him was a triangle ship with 3 lights on it. And when I saw that, I immediately blacked out. And I was out, they tell me, for about 5 minutes. And when I say that I was out, I was sitting stock upright, and my eyes were open the whole time, but I was unresponsive to them. And so when I finally came to, the first thing I said to them was, "That's it, but it's not it. It's a hell of a lot bigger than that." So I wanted to preface that with that, so that nobody thinks that I was into UFOs my whole life. I really wasn't. And even up to 95. I'm sorry?
Oh, that must have been quite a shock for your friend at the time, your friends at the time.
Right.
Seeing you go into that trance state.
Well, and the first thing he said was, "See?" So I conveyed to them what had happened. And Clay, my girlfriend, wasn't totally convinced, but Clay was completely convinced. He's like, I have heard stories like this repeatedly. So he says, I'm willing to bet that what you're saying is true. But I got to say that for years after that, I questioned it. And the reason being is because, I thought I was hallucinating the whole thing. But anyway, so let me get into what had actually happened and what I had remembered in that 5-minute period. I mean, and it was a lot. It just like came flooding back. But anyway, so in 1988, I was living in Southern California, and I was homeless, but I was living out of my car. And there were certain places along the I-10 freeway there, near San Bernardino, where in Ontario area, where I would go, to these rest stops and get some sleep at nighttime. And I have to say that I wasn't eating right. I think I was subsisting basically on Vienna sausages, actually, which is awful, but I did what I had to do. Um, but so one evening I was traveling through Ontario on the I-10 freeway, and it wasn't uncommon for the freeways to be shut down at nighttime. And so you had to divert. And so as I was going along south on the I-10 freeway, or rather it would be east, I guess. East? Yeah, east. Um, there was a warning sign that they were going to shut down past the Haven Avenue exit. So I thought, well, crap, because the place I needed to get to was off the 10 freeway there. But I knew that there was a way to get around it if I went north on Haven. And it meant that I had to go get off the freeway on Haven and go north on Haven, and then go south or east again on this road called Highland Avenue or Highland Boulevard. I can't remember what it was.
So you essentially had to take the exit to loop back around to
right, and so
going there.
Exactly, I would have to go to to Highland Avenue and then go back down some other street. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, so I did that. And back then in 1988, now it's all built up again now. I mean, it's very big community up there now. But back in 1988, it was all grape fields. That part of Southern California has always been known for their wineries. And anyway, it was all grape fields out there, and there were no lights out there. So I got up to Highland Avenue, and I'm cruising along, and it's quite a stretch of road. And as I went up over this one hill, I started seeing this light that was like faintly pulsing in the distance. And I thought, what the hell is that? I've never seen that before. And as I'm trying to concentrate on the road and trying to concentrate on that light, suddenly this ball, and I would say it was probably about the size of maybe a soccer ball, maybe a basketball, but it was glowing white, and it had this inner glow to it. It wasn't like it was, I don't know, it wasn't shining like a light. It was just glowing from like inside. And it came up next to my window, probably about maybe 6 feet away, maybe. And it was keeping pace with my car. And so here I am trying to concentrate on the road and trying to figure out what that light is in the distance. And then I see this thing. And to this day, I'm surprised that I wasn't in an accident out in the middle of nowhere at nighttime.
Was that the light that came up next to you? Was that on your driver's side or the passenger?
On my driver's side, yeah.
On your driver's side. Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to look at this, and the ball that's next to me isn't really doing anything other than just like, I don't know, tracking me at my speed. And so, and then what I tried to do is I tried to speed up, and it sped up along with me. Well, this went on for a little while, and all the time that pulsing light is getting bigger out in the distance. And I want to say it was probably 2 minutes into this, and the light in the distance had grown pretty big. And the ball of light that was next to me suddenly took off at like light speed and just joined with that other light. So, I mean, as you can imagine.
How far would you say the light in front of you, how far away would you say that was?
Probably about maybe half a mile to 3/4 of a mile.
So fairly close.
Yeah. But at this point, it was getting larger. I mean, they were just big. And so as I traveled on, the thing had a structure to it. And I started to see the structure. And at first I thought, well, maybe they put up some sort of thing in the field there. But then as I traveled on, I couldn't see any supporting beams, like it would be for a building or something like that. Right. But as I kept going, I want to say about maybe less than 1/4 mile away from the thing, I could see exactly what it was. And it was a huge triangle, a huge black triangle with lights underneath it that were all different colors, and they were squiggling underneath the base of this thing. And to give you some reference, this thing was about the size of a football field, an American
Wow.
football field, and about the size of maybe a 2-story building. And it was just hovering there. And so, like I say, about maybe less than a quarter mile away, my car stalled out. And I was going a good clip, I mean, because I'm out in the middle of nowhere, there's no other cars around. So I was going maybe.
There's a light following you. You're speeding up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, so yeah, I mean, I was so mesmerized by this thing, and I had a old Hyundai GLS, and it had a sunroof in it. So I opened up the sunroof, and as I'm going along, I'm looking at this thing, and the thing is just monstrous. And I don't even have my eyes on the road anymore. And I didn't even realize my car had stalled.
So at this point, are you actually driving underneath the structure?
No, it was off to the side in the grape field.
Okay.
Off to the side of the road. So anyway, finally, my car gets virtually underneath it. I mean, about midway between the point of the triangle and the back end of the triangle. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm just amazed at this thing. And I had no idea what it was. My car finally stopped, and I got up and kind of squiggled my way through my sunroof to get a better look at this thing. And as I'm staring at this thing, awestruck, I hear a guy behind me in kind of a deep voice, and he says, "Sir, you need to sit down." And it startled me, and I was like, "What?" And I turned around, and I saw this guy who was, how we generally depict the Men in Black, with, the black suit, black suit, white tie. Say again.
Did he have features?
Yeah, he looked like a normal guy, I mean, but I do remember he had an armband on his right arm. And the only thing I can remember about it is that it kind of reminded me of like a nuclear warning sign almost, but it was more, I don't know, slanted than that. I mean, it was very strange. So anyway, I didn't know who this guy was, but I figured, if he's out there and he's some sort of authority figure, I better just go okay, And so I sit back down in my seat, and I look out toward my window, and there were like, I want to say 3 or 4 black Jeeps parked in front of me. And now, had I not slowed down and stopped, I would have plowed right into them. I wouldn't have seen them at all, because like I said, there's no lights out there.
Right. And you're looking up
right.
The whole time.
Yeah.
You're driving as well. You're not going to see that.
Yeah. So anyway, he motions for me to roll down my window. And so I do. And he says, "Sir, what are you doing here?" And I kind of explained my situation. I said, "Look, I don't have a place to live. I'm going, the freeway was closed. I just trying to get to the rest stop and, get some sleep." And so he says, "I want you to step out of your car." So I'm thinking, oh God, here we go, and I got out of my car, and I looked at him, and I said, "Look, I don't know what you're doing out here. I don't know what that thing is, but I don't want any part of it. Please just let me go. I'm not going to say a thing about it." And he's like, "Nah, sorry, that's too late for that." And it's about that time that I happened to just like look down, and there was this creature there, and it was what people typically refer to as a gray. So anyway, so I looked down, and I just then noticed that this creature, that we commonly know as a gray, was standing beside him. And the thing was about, I want to say 3.5 feet tall or so. And so anyway, the guy that was there looked down at the creature, and it was like they were communicating with each other through telepathy. And finally, the guy nodded, and then he asked him. He said, "They want to take you aboard." And I'm like, "Aboard that? No, I don't want to do that." And at that point, the creature came up and touched my hand. And as apprehensive as I was about this, all of that anxiety and apprehension went away with that touch.
Did you
And I
see
remember,
any features on the gray, like facial features,
Was
whenever?
wearing clothes
you
or
know,
anything like that as well?
it wasn't wearing clothes. However, all of them that I encountered later on, and this one as well, I wouldn't say that it was nude. It was almost like the whole thing was a suit, you know?
The skin itself was the suit.
Right, exactly. And I do remember that it had, well, they all had like 4 fingers and like no obvious thumb or anything like that. And the feet didn't have toes. So, and that was one of the first things that indicated to me that this was some sort of suit. It was almost like the thing conformed into almost shoes.
Right.
So, but one of the things that I was just transfixed with were its eyes. And, you know, you see depictions of grays with these pointy eyes, like pointing toward the temples and pointing toward the nose. And it wasn't like that. It was more almond shaped insofar as like it was rounded near the temples, but they did come down to a point near the nose. And it was very glassy. And those lights that I was telling you that were squiggling under the ship were reflecting off of these eyes. And so I was just transfixed. So anyway, like I say, the thing touched my hand and I was completely compliant. I mean, it was almost that I had no will of my own. And I remember walking with it into the gray field underneath the craft. And I don't remember, however, how we got on the craft. There was no, you know, ladder or anything like that. But the next thing I know, I was laying on a table inside this very kind of dark gray room. I mean, it almost looked utilitarian almost.
From the moment that he touched your hand, would you say that was almost like a wave of euphoria or something that came over you?
I don't know if it was euphoria, but like I said, I mean, all my anxiety about the thing disappeared. It was like,
do you remember exiting the car to go?
Oh yeah. Oh no, because the
within-
guy had asked me to get out of the car.
Okay.
And like I said, that's when I got out and noticed this thing next to it.
Okay, so you were already out of the car by the
Mhm.
time when the creature came forward and touched your hand.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so anyway, so the next thing I know, I'm aboard this craft, what I had assumed I was aboard this craft. And I was on a slab table, and I'm assuming that the table was kind of low to the floor because I couldn't move anything, but I could move my eyes, and I was able to use my peripheral vision to look to my sides and down toward my feet. And to my sides, I saw other people there. And like there was this adult man who was to my right. And then to my left looked to be like maybe a 10-year-old girl. And we were all naked. And I
All
looked
on
down.
slabs.
Yeah, all on our individual slabs. Yeah. And I don't remember if there were any other people on to my left where that girl was, but to my right where that adult male was, I could see other people on their own slabs that way, but I couldn't see them very well because like I said, I was using my peripheral vision. And then I looked down toward my feet, and past that was almost like a catwalk. Now, all of these creatures that were there, these grays, like I said, they were all about 3.5, maybe 4 feet tall. Up on the catwalk was what I now know as a tall white, very
sure.
insect-like, you know, and it seemed to be the one in control of everything going on. But I could see the creatures doing something with the guy on my right, and none of them were around me yet. And it was very strange because they made this, they didn't make much noise, but when they did make a noise, it was almost like a dolphin, You know, a dolphin kind of chirps.
Like
Little
that.
echolocation.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, it sounded like that. So, I mean,
As you're looking over, you said the table seemed low to the ground. Were you at waist level to these beings? Were you lower than that, or
about waist level. Yeah,
about
about
waist
waist
level
level.
to these 3 or 4 foot tall creatures? So you're only
Probably
2 feet off the ground.
About that, probably. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you could see over and see, this gentleman with whatever is happening to him.
Mhm.
While they're over him, that's when you first start to hear the sound of their communication.
Right. And again, I couldn't see what they were doing to him, but they were chirping. And then after a few minutes, just laying there, they all started coming over to my table. And when I say all, I want to say there was 1, 2, probably 5 of them, I guess. But one was very prevalent, and it came up toward my head. And I had the distinct impression that it was female. And to this day, I don't know why, but I just got a strong female energy from it.
But physically indistinguishable from any of the others.
Right. And I asked her, what's going on? And she looked over me down near my face, and she put her hand on my forehead. And here's something interesting. Now, like I said, when these memories came back, at that point, I thought that I had just blacked out the memory, because back then, the next thing I knew, I was up walking around with her on the ship, the same alien. However, up to this point, I had always thought that these things were benevolent. I mean, they were kind of benign. They didn't seem to want much, and so I thought they were just curious about us. But about, maybe I want to say 10 months ago, my co-host of my YouTube channel, Ralph, and my wife and I were sitting out in our living room, and we were watching a movie, and the movie was called The Fourth Kind. And in it, what it's about these abductions that were happening up in Alaska, and it's a fictionalized version of that. It wasn't like a documentary, but
Right.
In one scene, the lead character is describing her abduction experience, and she's remembering it, and you're seeing what she's remembering. And at one point during the thing, there was a drill that was coming toward her eye when she was on this table. And I immediately freaked out, because suddenly that part that I had blacked out, where I blocked it out, that all came back to me. And I now realize what had happened while this was going on. And I'm sorry, I know this now. I really am, because it has caused me PTSD. I mean, God bless my wife that she puts up with this, but I'm waking up in the middle of the night screaming on a constant basis. I mean, it's really bad. So let me briefly tell you what had happened during that time. When she put her hand on my head, her other hand came up and stuck a needle in the back of my neck here. And to this day, I think what she did at that point was she put some sort of implant in me, because now, I mean, for years, I've felt this thing, but not all the time. What will happen is that area of my neck will start to tingle, and I'll go to rub it, and I'll feel what feels like a BB, from a BB gun there, and it rolls around, and it doesn't hurt, but it does tingle. And then it'll just go away after a while. I mean, and if you touch that area, you can't feel it at all. Right now, I can feel it, and I think
We're
it's
talking
probably
about it,
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you
Yeah.
think that moment whenever she touched your forehead was like when the initial being touched your hand and you kind of blacked out and had that anxiety removed?
Yeah.
And
I think that that's what it was. And for this memory to have been blocked for so long. I mean, like I said, when I initially had this memory, it was in 1995. And, here we are in 2020, and I just had this memory about 10 months ago.
Do you find that memories throughout the years since 1995, more of the story has come together for you?
Well, yeah, from about 1995 until I want to say maybe 2000, I was getting more and more memories about it, but just vague things, small things. I mean, the majority of these memories came back in 1995 on that night. But yeah, but to go on with what had happened on that slab, one of the aliens came up and put something, I can only liken it to be like an intubator into my throat. And after they did that, they filled my stomach with air. And after they did that, they injected something into my navel. And then, you know how they always talk about, you always hear about anal probing and all that. And I have no doubt that that happens. But I have no memory of that at all.
Sure.
However, I do remember having a forceful ejaculation. And
wow.
it was extremely painful. But yeah, I mean, so
was that coinciding with the air into the stomach? And,
yes, yeah,
and everything all simultaneously.
Yeah, but that's all I remember about that, and that's enough. I don't want to remember anymore. Like I said, I'm waking up screaming in the middle of the night, and I'm screaming, no, 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 please don't. And my poor wife is just, I'm here. Don't worry, honey. You're here. You're here. You're here.
Right.
I mean, and so it's really caused a problem. But like I said, I don't really remember anything else about that. The next thing I remember is being up and walking with this creature, the one that I said had that feminine energy. And we were walking in a different part of the ship, and it was equally dim and gray. But we went into this area, and I won't say it was like a control room or anything like that, but they did have these like plexiglass screens up. And on one of them, it had lights on it. And she was trying to tell me telepathically that this is where they're from. And I drew it. I had no idea what they were talking about. I had no idea what she meant. And or where this was, but I drew it out from memory once and showed it to a guy I know who was really into astronomy. And he says, well, that's Zeta Reticuli.
Oh, wow. And
I've since learned that the Greys are possibly from there, or at least one species of the Greys are from there. And then, yeah, and I remember being brought into another room that was like this big chamber. And there were these columns, and inside these columns, there were what I can only describe them as fetuses. They looked partly human and partly alien. They had the large alien eyes, but they weren't exactly like the Gray's eyes were.
Almost
just larger.
Many refer to as, they say there's a hybrid program or something like that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But at the time I had no idea what this hybrid program was. I had no idea. All I saw these things, and I could describe them as fetuses, but they were larger than fetuses, and she brought one of them to me that wasn't in one of these columns, and she had me hold it. And I was like, what, why? And then I realized that the creature was dead. Oh. And I don't know what she wanted. I mean, she didn't convey, she just wanted me to hold it. And so I did hold it, and I gave it back to her.
Do you have a sense of the memory of how something like that felt, or?
It was weighty. I don't know how.
Did it have the texture of human skin? Did it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It felt like a baby's skin would feel, but it was still like almost in fetus form, But yeah, I remember being fairly heavy. but anyway, I ended up giving it back to her. And I remember her asking me about religion. And I'm not a religious person today, but back then, I had been involved with everything from born again Christianity to paganism. And I've always been interested in religion. So I knew how to answer her about that, rather than when she asked me about, where they're from and all that, and just didn't understand. Um, but I knew how to answer her about that. And what she wanted to know is what I thought about the world religions and what is happening in the world because of these religions. And so I told her, I was point blank about it. I said, that I feel that religions are one of the biggest causes for the strife in the world,
Sure.
and so yeah, but that was like the end of the conversation. I remember going up toward the edge of that chamber and seeing windows there. And I looked down and I was able to see my car down below. I don't believe that we went anywhere, because when this happened, I mean, we were over the same spot where I was initially.
From your view looking out, did it seem as though much time had passed? I know you said you were driving at night before. Did you get
Yeah,
a general sense of how it looked outside? Were the Jeeps that you had seen before still there?
I didn't see the Jeeps there. I didn't see the other guy there. It was just my car. And how much time had passed, I don't know. It may have been late in the morning, into the wee hours, like 3-4 o'clock. Because when this happened initially, when I was first stopped, I want to say it was probably around 11 o'clock in the evening. But at that point, it probably maybe around 3. But I'm throwing out a wild guess there. I
No
never
way to
really
tell
even
from the
thought about
sun
it.
or
Sure.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the next thing I know, I'm back in my car, but I'm not there. I'm at the top of that Haven Avenue, past where you would turn to go onto Highland Avenue. And, and at the top of that, I mean, there's a big mountain there, and so the road just ended. And so that's where I was. And I was pointing, would have been westbound on, and I had no memory of what had happened. But I remember I remember waking up and looking out the passenger side of my car, and there was a deer out there right next to my window. And as soon as it saw me move, it darted off. And so again, had no idea how I got there or even why I was there. But I didn't remember anything that had transpired. I do remember going down to a Denny's because I had to urinate like mad. And so I went into the Denny's and used the urinal, and my urine had blood in it. And I didn't really think about it at the time. I thought, with the kind of crap that I'm eating right now and not
Too
doing
many
well.
Vienna sausages, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And, to this day, I can't eat Vienna sausages because of that. But yeah, and so yeah, I had blood in the urine, and I thought, well, it's probably because of my
Did you
lack of nutrition.
feel anything from at the time? Did you feel anything
No,
from the injection
no,
in your neck?
I didn't feel anything. I mean, untoward, I mean, physically speaking, I mean, and so, I mean, like I said, I had no idea what had transpired. And so, I mean, I felt fine. The only physical thing was the blood in the urine.
So when you woke up in your car, or when you were back in your car, did you have a sense of waking up, or were you awake and you just were there?
Automatically.
No, I had a sense of waking up, like I was waking up from sleeping.
But you were pointing the opposite direction you had been traveling up.
Mm-hmm.
And how, like, miles distance or so, like what are we talking about from where you were to where your car was whenever you were around?
I didn't even remember getting off the freeway. You know what I mean? So yeah, when I woke up, I was totally confused because I thought, what the hell am I doing here? Why would I be up here?
I also find the deer in the window pretty interesting. If you have heard abduction stories before, sometimes they come with what's referred to as a screen memory, where it could be an owl, it could be any number of animals, usually right outside the window, right outside of the window, right after these experiences. And some people that have gone through hypnotic regression have remembered that and realized that those animals were indeed not animals, but were, like Gray or something, but their mind has been wiped of that and has been replaced with a screen memory of something that might be a little bit more appeasing to the human mind.
Right. And yeah, I mean, and I've heard the same thing, and the thing is that, I went from a total non-believer in all of this. Overnight, I completely believed it, although, like I said, I did feel that maybe I was hallucinating, but the more I researched this stuff, the more I realized that my friend Clay was right, that what happened to me is very typical of what happens to people who are abducted, and specifically by the Grays. I have that podcast that I do, the Paranormal News Network, with my co-host Ralph, and we talk to a lot of people that have had contact with alien beings of different species, and some of them are kind of bad, this contact, and some of them are saying that they don't even like the idea of using the word abducted. They like to use the word taken because it's always been their choice to go. And that wasn't the case with me. But yeah, I have heard in my research that there are those screen memories. And I believe now that that's what that was with that deer. And again, it was morning time at that point. The sun was up, so there was no mistaking that it was a deer,
Right.
But it, could possibly be a screen.
So aside from your own personal research and what you do with your, with your friend, as far as like, your show and everything, have you had any other experiences with aliens or UFOs? Have you had anything else?
Yeah. Ralph and I, we're like paranormal magnets. I swear to God, we are. Whether that be ghosts or UFOs or aliens or whatever, he's never been abducted that he knows of. However, there was one, we've known each other since we were kids. We've known each other since I think I was 17 years old. He was like 18, 19. And we were in Southern California, and we went out to Oceanside, California, to visit his friend. Now, Ralph lived in Claremont, California, which is north of Ontario area. And anyway, so we left and we went out to Oceanside to see his friend. And we were there, well into the evening. And Oceanside to Claremont is probably a good hour and a half away on the freeway. So we get done with the visit and we get back in the car and start going. And as we're driving along the freeway, we're not really talking. I mean, we got the music going on the radio, but we're not really talking. And it seemed like it was just like, and suddenly we were back in Claremont, and the clock was off in his car, and so neither one of us can explain it.
What's the normal travel time between those 2 points?
You said about an hour?
About an hour and a half. Yeah.
And you guys
I think, say again.
You guys were pretty early into it, and then.
Yeah, it was, I want to say we were driving for probably maybe 20 minutes. And,
wow.
But then next thing you know, we were back home. And I remember looking at him and going, why are we here so quick? And he's like, I have no idea. So we still don't know if because, a lot of abductees have this missing time experience. And so we don't know if we were abducted or not at that point. I mean, I don't remember anything. He doesn't remember anything. He lives here with my wife and I in Las Vegas. And we had, what Janet Airlines is. It's the airline that transports employees into Nellis Air Force Base, as well as Area 51 and S4. And it goes right over our house because it's based out of McCarran Airport. It goes right out of our house, I would say a good 6 to 8 times a day. And the three of us were out on our backyard patio, sitting around the table and just, shooting the shit. And Ralph looked up and he saw one of the Janet Airlines and he goes, "Oh, there's Janet again." And I looked up and I'm going, "Oh yeah, there it is." And then right behind it at a lower altitude, all three of us saw this thing, and it was a cigar shaped craft that was very silvery, but it was traveling almost in an upright manner. And now I've seen pictures of these things before, and it looked like that. However, there was a black sphere that was kind of rotating around its circumference. And the thing just slowly went over our heads. And I ran in and I got my video camera. Ralph was out there with his tablet, which had a camera on it. My wife had her phone. None of us could get the thing in frame. We couldn't see it at all. I mean, it was almost like it was being cloaked. It was very strange. And it made me so mad because I thought, God, would be great evidence, and I would have been able to get it so clear because it was so close to us.
As you say, it was traveling, a cigar-shaped UFOs are normally seen traveling horizontally. This one was traveling
kind of almost at an angle. Yeah, almost at an angle.
Or maybe ascending.
But
that's the thing. It wasn't ascending. It was just going like this right over our heads. And, we watched it for a good, 10 minutes, and it just went slowly by, and it was headed kind of east of Nellis Air Force Base.
What's the size of the
compared to the plane?
It was hard to judge because, like I said, the plane was up higher than this thing. And you know what? I have to admit, when I first saw it, I thought, "Oh, it's a balloon."
Yeah.
But the more I watched it, the more I realized it wasn't a balloon. I mean, there's no way it was a balloon. But yeah, if I had to guess, I would say the thing was probably maybe 30 feet long, maybe, and the sphere that was going around it, that black sphere, probably maybe 10 feet in diameter, maybe. So,
sounds like an airstream traveling in the sky.
Almost. Yeah. It was almost like that. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, we watched it and went out toward like east of Nellis Air Force Base, and eventually we lost sight of it because it just got so far away. It just kind of disappeared.
There's no lights on either one of these crafts either.
No, and in fact, this one thing that we watched, this cigar shaped thing, like I said, it was silvery, but I didn't see any lights on it. And I failed to mention this was in broad daylight. I want to say it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon when we saw this. But yeah, like I said, I was so frustrated that none of us could get any footage of this because, I mean, it would have made spectacular footage. I mean, it would have made, so, but yeah. But living in Las Vegas as we do, I mean, pretty much, I wouldn't say all the time, but I'd say probably 15-20% of the time, you can just look up in the sky and you're going to see something that you can't explain. And like I said, we live near McCarran Airport and that flight path. And on the other side of us, we have the other Las Vegas Airport flight path. So we're used to seeing planes all the time. So we know what a plane looks like day or night. And so when we look up in the sky and we see some sort of thing that we can't explain, we sincerely can't explain it because, I mean, it's not a plane. It's not a drone. We know what drones look like too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, but I mean, there was one time my wife and I, again, out on the patio, this is back when we smoked. And so we were out on the patio a lot. And she was standing there and we were just talking back and forth. And I looked again out toward like Nellis Air Force Base. And I saw this black thing move across the sky. And at first I thought it was a jet, but it was moving kind of slow. And then suddenly it just disappeared, just gone. And I was like, what the hell? And I didn't say anything to her at the time. And suddenly the thing comes back from the same spot. There was not a cloud in the sky. So it couldn't have gone behind a cloud. it came back, and then it went all the way back and past the roof of my neighbor's house. And suddenly it came back again. And I said, Terry, look at this. Do you see that thing in the sky? And she goes, yeah. I said, watch this. It's going to disappear. I'll bet you 10 to 1 it's going to disappear. And lo and behold, it disappears. And I said, now watch, it's going to come back. And it did. And she was like, what the hell? And neither one of us could tell what it was because, we see jets flying over Nellis Air Force Base a lot. I mean, they're always doing maneuvers, but they're a hell of a lot faster than what this thing was moving. So I don't know what it was. It was too far to make out any real dimensions of the thing. But yeah, I do know that it was like jet black.
Wow.
So with your experience of seeing all these kinds of sightings near your home where this Air Force base is, and your experience with having that Men in Black kind of, guy at your abduction, however you want to say it, take in or abduction.
It was an abduction. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like there is a government influence on this or a heavy government hand involved?
I can't say for sure because I don't know. And I don't like saying things for sure that I don't know. However, in my research, I have to say, yeah, I think specifically with the Grays, I think that they are hand in hand with the government, and they have some sort of, I've heard that there was an agreement made way back when with Roosevelt, I think it was, maybe Hoover, maybe, that there was an agreement between the government and the Grays that they would be allowed to take humans at will to do experiments on them in exchange for technology.
Whether that's true, again, but I think that might have even been Eisenhower.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah.
I think it was.
There's a name for the agreement, but I don't remember what it was. But
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember either. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's not only entirely
for technology was the trend.
Right. I think that it's not only entirely possible, but I think it's feasible. And I can I'm not a big fan of the government. I can see the government doing this kind of thing. I really can. And I think I'm of the opinion that, you hear these presidents, or even the candidates for presidents say that they're going to blow this thing wide open, but they never do. And I think there's a very good reason for that. And the reason is because the presidency is, it's a temporary position. And the people who are in the know with this are people who are lifers in this stuff. And they are the ones who are in the need to know, not presidents, because I don't think that they can risk having the president
have that kind of knowledge, because then you're just a larger target.
Exactly. And possibly after you're out of office, writing a tell-all book.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
They can't have that.
There's more at stake than a 4-year term. Now, with your experiences and, you'd said that originally when you first remembered your abduction in 1995 of the 1998 experience, that you remembered it as a positive until you had a memory of the injection. Do you still believe that all these abductions and all these experiences are leaning more towards the negative, or that there may be a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, how do I explain this? What happened with me and what happened with other people who had terrifying experiences, I was talking to a woman who is very into this stuff. She has never been abducted, but she's very into this. And I told her, I said, what I experienced was extremely negative and it's affected me horribly. And she says, but what you have to understand is that when these creatures take you aboard and do these experiments on you, think of it as a doctor or even a vet doing an experiment on an animal, and how cold and possibly callous that doctor would seem to the animal. And what she said made a lot of sense to me. I mean, because one of the things that I noticed about these beings is that they had no emotion whatsoever, and certainly no compassion. So yeah, so at this point I liken it to that, I mean, they didn't do it to be cruel, you know, they were doing it just because, I felt that they were just doing their job.
Wow.
No
And
matter how it affected me,
Right.
having those zeta reticulans there and the tall white, it really runs the gamut of the whole abduction experience. I've heard a lot of theories about the tall whites kind of having these grays as not even a living creature themselves, more of just a biological drone. Is one theory.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got a feel of that when I was aboard. I mean, like I said, I think that tall white, that insect looking thing, when I say insect, it had a insectal face to it. But it seemed to be in control of the entire situation, as though it was controlling the minds of these things. And so, like you had mentioned, that they're drones. I'm not sure if that's entirely correct or not, but it seemed like it was, that they didn't have any control over it, that this other being did. So, yeah.
That's a phenomenal story. I mean, you're with me hearing that story. That's up there with a Travis Walton kind of level of abduction. I mean,
yeah, I'm glad I didn't suffer what he went through. Oh my God.
And you a lot shorter. You weren't gone as long, but
yeah.
I gotta say, Damian, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us about your experiences?
Well, honestly, no. I'm just, I mean, it is what it is. It's hard to live with. Even before I had these horrible memories come back to me, it was still hard to live with. I mean, I was in restaurant management the majority of my life. And so what was really hard about this is not being able to talk to anybody about this. So, I mean, I understand other people who are abductees, or they claim they've been taken, and they don't want to talk about it to anybody because they, like in my case, I mean, I had to hold some sort of modicum of respect with, people. And if my employees got wind of this, God only knows what would have. And so I do want to say that anybody who is out there watching your program right now, and if you've been taken and you're afraid to talk about it, I understand it. But I got to say, when I came out on my YouTube channel about this so many years later, I felt like this huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. And it felt wonderful, And even to this day on Facebook, I'm friends with some of my old employees, and they're like, "What?
Yeah. Why'd you never tell us?"
Yeah.
But they understand. They understand.
Yeah.
I've never received any kind of ridicule about it or anything like that. But I understand the apprehension of not coming out of the UFO closet. I truly do, because it's kind of a hard thing to do. And I mean, I have been ridiculed about it since I came out, but not by people that I know. And I think I worried about it a little too much, But yeah. So anyway, if you have listeners or viewers out there that are watching this and have gone through the same thing, don't be afraid to speak out and talk to somebody, especially now in like on like Facebook, where you have groups that are dedicated to this kind of thing. There are people out there that truly understand what you've gone through. So yeah.
Absolutely. We definitely are working towards that higher consciousness, that better understanding as a culture of humans.
That's a big reason
why we're doing
we
this.
started this show, is to let others out there know
Have that platform,
that they're not alone, and
Right.
that these experiences, though they are unique, aren't that bizarre. They happen to more people than you might think, and I think it takes brave people to come forward with their stories and let them be heard, for others to continue sharing their stories as well. And
well, we'll share what's your YouTube channel called? We'll share your YouTube channel link in the description for people to check that out.
If I can do a couple of little self promotions here.
Go ahead.
The YouTube channel we have is Black Lotus Productions. And so you can get there, but just by going youtube.com/Black Lotus Productions. And there we talk about kind of all things strange and unusual, everything from, aliens to ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, and all kinds of things. And the thing about that is that Ralph, my co-host Ralph, and I really dive into the research there. And so when we talk about these things, we know what we're talking about. It's not as though we like watched a program on TV and went, oh, yeah, let's talk about that. No, we go down rabbit holes with this thing. So yeah, so if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely check it out. We also have a podcast over at Podbean and iHeartRadio and Spotify and now Amazon Music. And it's called Paranormal News Network. And what we do, kind of like what you guys do here, we bring the latest in paranormal news, and then the second half of the part of the show, we have interviews with people who are involved in the paranormal world in one capacity or another. And so, we just started that. I want to say, I think we're like 37 episodes in now. And
oh, wow.
Wow.
That's awesome, man.
You just started. We're just starting.
And so yeah, and we do that once a week, every Wednesday, and it's kind of taken off pretty well. I'm really kind of pleasantly surprised about it. So yeah, and then one more thing I want to mention is along with the Black Lotus Productions, we have an affiliate group at Facebook, and it's called the Black Lotus Discussion Group. And and we talk about all the things that we talk about on Black Lotus. And the nice thing about this group is that there are no trolls. So many of those groups on Facebook are just ridiculous. Yes. Oh my God. And there are people on there that are members of these groups that obviously have no belief in this or even have an open mind toward any of this. And so they just go on there to slam people that have serious questions about that stuff. We don't do that at Black Lotus. It is not allowed. We're unlike a lot of these groups where we don't share silly memes or like comics with aliens and that kind of stuff. We have actual real conversations there.
Right.
And so, yeah. So if your viewers are interested in that at all, especially like I said, those of you out there who have had experiences, or what the experiences are, we're here for you. We got a shoulder to cry on and an ear to listen to it. So
that sounds wonderful. You guys can find all those links in our descriptions for either the podcast or this YouTube show that we're watching right now.
Yeah. And Damian, thank you once again for coming on.
Wow, that was a really incredible story. You don't really get a lot of firsthand people telling you their abduction story, especially one with so many vivid details and kind of terrifying situations.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it was kind of reminiscent of the Travis Walton story, which is really cool to hear, like Ashley said, from a firsthand perspective. We've got a lot of really cool stuff. I want to say thank you, first of all, to Damian Gray for coming on our show. And guys, click the link in our description of this video or in the podcast to check out Black Lotus Productions.
Yes, we've got him on YouTube, and he's also got Paranormal News Network.
His podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So check that out. And also for us, we've got another episode coming out.
One more, and then we'll take a mid-season break and bring you guys kind of a roundtable discussion with a friend of ours that's been helping us make the show.
That's right. Yeah, as Ben Delory, we're going to do a mid-season roundtable. So don't forget to subscribe, click the notifications if you guys want to get a reminder for when these episodes are coming out. And to check us out on all of our socials.
Social media platforms. Yeah.
And if you have a story to share, you can always email us at beamscreamdream@gmail.com. And for all of our other socials, you can click the links in the bio here.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. And thanks for tuning in. Until next time. For our closing statement tonight, I'd like to leave you with a quote from author Colin Wilson in his book, Beyond the Occult, 20 years research into the paranormal. Dull states of everyday consciousness tell us that the material world is all there is. States of more intense awareness reveal that this world is not all there is. There are hidden realms of reality beyond the grasp of everyday consciousness, and if spirits are part of these hidden realms, then it would obviously be a mistake to dismiss them as unimportant. Thank you for tuning in to Beams, Screams, and Dreams. Until next time.